All right, we're going to make positive, negative stamps. So we're going to use our rubber vinyl stuff. And so we're going to call this, it's kind of like a lino cut. It's similar to linoleum, except it's much easier to cut. So we've already used this stuff in class. And we are going to be thinking about creating a stamp this time. And the stamp, we are going to think about what the edges do when they are printed next to each other. So the positive and the negative shapes that are created from our stamp. So all four of these designs were made with the same stamp. So they are all different. So we are thinking about what happens when these negative spaces come together, what kind of shapes they create, and then what happens when our positive, or the part that we did not cut, comes together. So you have to be able to make 4 different designs with one stamp. And it all depends on how you lay it down. So this time we've been putting the paper on top and printing like this. This time we're actually going to use it like a stamp. So if you notice, and what I did on the back was I put some kind of element to tell me what's on the other side, and then I put an X in the corners so that when I arrange this from this side, I know what I'm doing. So like this one, I see my little curve is there. So after I inked it, it was like here, and then it was here, then it was here, then it was here. So that's one arrangement. And so that creates this design. So I have like a square in the middle. I've got my little curvy things on the edges. Here's another design. So this one, if I look at this, I shifted it. So I printed here and then here. And then here. Okay, so I did this, this, and then I did this, this to create this design. So you have to have some kind of system. So this one, I went here, I turned one time, turned, and that made this design. This one, I had my curvy thing all in the middle. So I shifted it this way and printed like that. So you have to be able to make at least 4 different designs with it printed right up next to itself, not randomly all over. You have to have kind of a system. Now, if I had the same thing on all of these sides, if my design was symmetrical, when I set it down, no matter what I did, it would make the same design, and I don't want that. So you want to make sure that this is different than what's over here. This is different than what's over here. And I want to kind of think about what's going to happen with this when this edge comes together with one of these edges. So the part that's not cut is the positive. That's what takes the ink. The part you cut away is the negative, or the color of the paper. So you're going to create 4 different designs with your one stamp, and then you're going to create a continuous pattern with your one stamp. So I want to see, you can't do like random all over the place, because we want to see what happens when you have a systematic way of printing and your negative and your positive come together on these edges. You can create some really cool patterns. So this I did with blue ink, and then I did blue and yellow on the same brayer, and then I was going to go have it kind of turn into all green on this edge. I'm even going to stamp, I'm going to put some scrap paper under here, and I'm going to do these edges here. So it just looks like a continuous pattern, and you wouldn't even know that it was like, oh, this little square. It would just look like, oh, that's some kind of cool pattern. So what you're going to do to figure out what you want to do for your your stamp, there's a few things you could do. You could stack up some papers, same size. So I have 4 here because I want to kind of play with them and see what happens. I'm going to show you. So if this is one edge, I did half of a heart. If I do the other half over here, but it's shorter. If that were part of my design, and that's not enough at all, I have to deal with all 4 sides. If I printed that next to itself, it would do something like this, right? Notice nothing is happening on these edges, so that's boring. I don't like it. So I can also play with cutting some stuff out of these other edges. You're kind of limited with paper, but it does kind of help you get some ideas. So I'm going to cut something. The corners are nice to do something out of the corners. Then when your stamp comes together, different things can happen because of those corners. So say I did this. I'm even going to cut something here just to start giving me an idea. So if I had this, here are some possibilities. So I still have my heart in there when I do those sides, if I print it that way. But I can also turn my stamp and see what kinds of things would happen with these edges coming together. So you can play that way if you want. You can also just go straight to, if you're thinking, oh, I have an idea and it's gonna work. Where's my pencil, y'all? Okay. So we're using the smaller square vinyl piece. I'm going to trace mine. And then I'm going to draw some designs. If you remember, this stuff transfers real easily to the vinyl. You just rub it on there. I like to do some straight and some curvy, and then some shapes kind of on their own. Let's see, I'm going to do, this time I'll do some triangles in here. And I'm going to maybe take something out of this corner. And I think I will cut some little shapes in this because I like seeing some positive shapes with like patterns cut out inside of them. So I think I'll do like, let's see, maybe I'll cut lines like this inside my positive. Maybe I'll do some stripes in here. So whatever your design is, you want to think of all of your edges, nothing too symmetrical. Like if I had this and I did this, well, if I did this more symmetrically, every time I printed this design next to itself, it would do the same thing. It would make these diamonds, where these triangles came together every single time. So that's no good. Don't do that. Do something different on all 4 sides. Do things that come into the shape. Combine maybe curvy and straight. So if I said, all right, I like this, I'm going to try this out. I could already like decide, okay, I'm going to want this to be my positive, this to be my positive, this to be my positive. This I'm going to make positive, and these are going to be light. And maybe I'll do every other one of these. Maybe I'll do a little triangle here. And now I want to do some kind of partial thing in the corner. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out so I can line it up well on my vinyl. I have my pencil pretty thick because that way it'll transfer by me just rubbing it on my vinyl piece. So here's my design. I want to make sure it transfers. Then I'm going to put it on top of my vinyl. I'm going to rub using the side of my pencil. I'm going to peek and make sure it's transferring, which it is. Okay, so it's faint, but it's good enough. So I can kind of trace over for those parts I didn't see really well. Okay, so here is my plan. Now I'm going to use my gouge, my linoleum cutter, to cut away my negative space. So that's my light areas. So if you remember, you don't cut towards your hand because you don't want to slip and then gouge yourself. So all of my negative, I'm just going to come in. Remember, I have this in the palm of my hand. I have my pointer finger on top, and I cut away. So it's like a shovel that I'm pushing out and away. So I'm going to cut my negative spaces. And if you get a nice kind of even, you catch it kind of evenly instead of digging way down, you can kind of glide around here. Okay, so I've cut most of my negative spaces. I'm going to cut, like I want this to be dark, but I want it to have some little lines in it. So I'm going to cut these so they'll kind of show up. And okay, so here is my stamp. I'm going to ink it to see what it looks like. But before I do that, so I know what I'm doing, I need to put something on the back. So any place I have some real obvious stuff. So like this goes like this. So that's there. So I know that it doesn't have to be exact, but just something to give you an idea of like, where am I going to put that same thing? And then here is this. This is kind of roundy. I'm also going to put an X just so if that was what I wanted to focus on, I could even do that. Like I could say, I'm going to have the X be here, 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 here. I'm going to have the X be here, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle. I'm going to have the X on the outer corner, outer corner, outer corner, outer corner. So you could even do it that way. Okay, so I've got my stamp cut. So I have all of my negative space cut out. If I ink this and I say, "Ooh, I want to change, I want to cut more," you can do that. You could just rinse it off and cut it. All right, so now you guys come over here with me. And okay, so we're using the same, our brayer, our plexi to roll our ink out. You need black ink to print your designs. If you don't have black, you can use blue or red. And you can also come up to school and get more black ink if you ran out. So remember, you need to grab a glob of ink, but then I need to roll it out evenly underneath. Okay, and then you're going to just use white paper for this. And I'm going to start creating my 4 designs. My 4 designs with it printed in sets of 4. So I'm going to ink it. This time you are going to hold it and you're going to stamp it. So this time, push it down. You have to re-ink it each time. So that is my X up in that corner. I'm going to re-ink it. So I need my ink rolled out evenly. So what I do is I line it back up with what I just did to decide how I'm going to do this. So maybe this time I'll do my X in the same corner. I'm just going to go straight down, same direction each time. I'm going to make sure I print it right up next to itself though, because I want those negative shapes to come together and the positive shapes to come together. So I'm going to ink this again. And I am printing it right next to itself. And that is one. This is one of my 4 designs. So that's what it looks like when it's printed with that X in that one corner. Then I'm going to try other arrangements. Still printed in sets of 4. So this time I'm going to put my circular shape in the middle. I feel like it's going to look kind of like a sun. I don't know why. But see, I'm looking at my little circular shape. So it's really helping me to see this on the back. So here is my second design. So cool, because you can there's even block printing ink that prints on fabric. Like you could make your own patterns on cloth. Cool. So that's a totally different design, but it's all the same stamp. So here's 2 things I can do with this one stamp. I need 4 different designs with it printed in sets of 4. So let's see. I'll do one here. Wait. I have my X. So I didn't ink that well because I was rushing. Okay, so how did I have that? I had that here. What's my plan? Okay, I'm going to do both this way, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction on the other side. So I grab my ink, I even it out underneath on the plexi. Okay, I did what I did. This. So now I'm going to do this and this. Yeah. See what this looks like. And this here. So now, maybe that's cool. Okay, so now I have some kind of triangular. Now those kind of make my center design. Cool. Okay, so I would have to come up with one more. I would get another piece of paper because it's not really going to fit on here. And I would do a 4th design so that I showed I can make 4 different designs with my one stamp. Then I'm going to say, oh, I want to fill up a whole piece of paper. I want this to look like a continuous pattern. So then you would rinse this off and you would get your colored ink, and you can also print on different color paper. I'll get all that set up and show you. Hold on. Okay, I'm kind of set up. So this one I printed on white paper, and I really had a system. I went like this, and then I did this. I did these same directions, like I switched them. And then the next row, I systematically changed those up because I wanted to see what it was going to look like. And I like kind of how these little strips with the circles in seem to be like dancing around the paper. But to show you, you can play with any color paper or ink. I really like doing the two colors on one brayer. So if you remember that, you put a little bit of one color towards the top and your other color next to it. I'm not going to try to roll all of this ink out at once. Instead, I'm going to grab a glob, right? Then underneath, I'm going back and forth. Now I can't go like this unless I want green. I just have to keep picking it up, setting it back down, rolling it until it gets even. And this is going to give me a cool two-tone, almost three tones with a little stripe of green in the middle. You see how cool my brayer looks? Okay, I'm going to ink my stamp. And I'm going to start here on this edge. And there is my first. Looks kind of cool. Now I'm going to ink my stamp the same way because I want this blue on one side, the yellow on the other. But then I'm going to change it up. So that one was like this. I'm going to turn it one time. I'm going to print it right up next to my other one. I want these to come together. Yeah, that's cool. I'm going to arrange my stamp again so that I have my colors like this. You can do one color if you want. I just think it's fun to play with these different colors. Okay, so I'm going to go like this, like this. So this, I'm going to lay down the same. You figure out some cool designs. The one thing I do not want you to do is just stamp it randomly and fill the paper. I want them printed right next to each other in order to look like just a continuous pattern. Like if you didn't see the edges, you would be like, wow, how did that even happen? You wouldn't know that it's this little square because it would just look like a continuous design. I think that's pretty. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. And I'm even going to stamp this edge so that it really does look continuous. So I would put something under it. And whatever I did here, I want that to show up there if I really want a continuous design. And there is that. So now when I come up here, I can change my plan, but I think I'm going to do the same thing as underneath. I just want to make sure I'm printing right next to. Ooh, that's cool. My little vertical things come together there. I like it. I like it. So remember, you grab a glob of ink, come underneath, roll it out so it's even. You don't have to do the two colors. You could do one color. I just think it's cool doing the two colors. Okay, I'm trying to do a system, so I'm printing right up next to. And I'm going to fill this whole piece of paper with my stamp. Let's see. So this should be like this. And if you have a little system, you're doing the same thing. Designs will just kind of show up. That are so cool. Let's see. I have to do 2 rows at least to show you what I'm talking about with these edges coming together. I love this. Let me do the last one. Okay, so this is going to go off the edge. And voila. So I'm going to fill this whole piece of paper. But when you look at it, you don't even realize, like, oh, that's just one little stamp, one little square that made that whole design and all the black, the positive and the negative. Okay, so you're going to make a stamp using the vinyl. You're going to print 4 designs with it grouped in 4, right up next to itself, 4 different designs. And then you're going to make a continuous pattern. You're going to fill a sheet of paper with it printed next to itself with that same stamp. So I could either cut this off, that's what I should do, or you're going to print right off the edge. The reason I say that is it makes a difference because now you can't really tell that it was like one little stamp, especially had I kept with one of the same colors. Okay? So this is your positive, negative stamp. You can do your design on paper, in pencil. You can rub that on top of your vinyl, use the side of your pencil, and use your gouge to cut out, and I'll help you in class, and have fun, and there you go.